Exodus. Lesson 1. Oppression, the background and the birth of Moses. Memory text. The children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. Exodus 2 verses 23 to 25. The book of Exodus speaks to the oppressed and forgotten, offering hope to those who feel abandoned, exploited, or enslaved today. Exodus speaks to life's struggles and injustices, showing how God hears the cries of the suffering, and steps in to help his people. God takes the lead in saving those who trust him. Exodus reminds us to accept his gift by faith, pointing to Jesus' work of redemption, and our salvation in him. Amid turmoil and darkness, if we keep our eyes on God, we can see his presence, care, and guidance, leading us to the eternal, promised land.
God's people in Egypt. The book of Exodus, called Shemot, in Hebrew, meaning names, opens with the phrase "and these are the names," listing the family of Jacob at the start. In Exodus 1 verses 1 to 7, we see the crucial truth, that God is faithful to his promises. The descendants of Jacob, who came to Egypt with him, multiply greatly, and become a strong, numerous people, just as God had promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Exodus begins with the Israelites oppressed and enslaved by a new king in Egypt, who feared their growing numbers, forcing them into harsh labor and building projects. Exodus 1 verse 12 shows that the more the Israelites were oppressed, the more they multiplied. Exodus ends with God's peaceful presence in the tabernacle. Between these points, God's triumph is shown as he delivers his people, parts the Red Sea, and defeats Egypt's powerful army, revealing his victory over evil. Despite human efforts to stop them, God remained in control and would save his people, even when the situation seemed hopeless.
The historical background. Though Joseph was sold by his brothers into slavery, God was with him in every situation, both in Potiphar's house and in prison. God blessed all he did, and granted him favor with others. His faithfulness and trust in God opened the way for his rise to power. The key to Joseph's success was God's constant presence and favor. Pharaoh made Joseph second in command over all Egypt, giving him authority, royal robes, a signet ring, and a chariot to show his new position. When Jacob's family came to Egypt during the famine in Canaan, Pharaoh welcomed them kindly because of Joseph, and the help he had given to Egypt. Pharaoh during Joseph's time was likely one of the Hyksos kings, a Semitic, or non-Egyptian dynasty, that ruled northern Egypt during the Second Intermediate Period, around 1650 to 1550 BC. The Hyksos were more open to foreigners, which could explain why Joseph, a Hebrew, was promoted to such a high position. Pharaoh during Moses' birth was probably from the 18th dynasty, possibly Thutmose I, or Thutmose III, around 1500 to 1450 BC. This Pharaoh feared the growing number of Israelites, and ordered the death of Hebrew baby boys, prompting Moses' mother to hide him in a basket in the Nile. Though many details about the Hebrews in Egypt are unknown, God's character still shines clearly. No matter how bad things seem, we can trust that God is always with us.
The Hebrew midwives. Exodus builds on Genesis. The Jews moved to Egypt, flourished, and were eventually enslaved. Though it may have seemed otherwise, God never abandoned his people. In their distress, he came to help. As Psalm 50 verse 15 says, "Call upon me, I will deliver you." In Exodus, no Pharaoh is named, only titled, Pharaoh, meaning king. Egyptians saw him as a god on earth, the son of Ra, their supreme sun god. Despite his power, this god couldn't sway the midwives from their convictions, and unlike him, they were named, not forgotten. In Exodus 1 verses 9 to 21, the faithful Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, played a vital role by defying Pharaoh's order to kill all newborn Hebrew boys. Instead, they chose to fear God rather than obey a wicked command, preserving innocent lives. They are remembered in history, because their courage and moral integrity stood against oppression. As a result, God honored them, giving them families of their own, a powerful testimony to their faithfulness. Their story reminds us that even in dark times, faithful obedience to God can make a lasting difference. When Pharaoh's plan failed, he ordered all Hebrew baby boys thrown into the Nile, likely as an offering to the god Hapi. This first targeted killing of Jews aimed to weaken their people and erase their identity.
Moses is born. In Exodus 2 verses 1 to 10, God's providence and protection are clearly seen in how Moses is saved from Pharaoh's death decree. God orchestrates events so that Moses is hidden, placed safely in the Nile, discovered by Pharaoh's daughter, and even raised by his own mother. This shows God's hand guiding Moses' life from the start, preparing him for his future role as deliverer. Moses was born during Egypt's powerful 18th dynasty, a thrilling time in history. One ruler, Thutmose III, known as the Napoleon of Egypt, was among its most famous pharaohs. Though born under a death sentence, Moses was seen as a special, or good child, the Hebrew word, tov. This word means more than physical beauty, it's the same term used when God called his creation good, and very good. This good child would one day lead Israel from bondage, fulfilling God's covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, though no one could have imagined it at his birth. The Egyptian princess could have been Hatshepsut, who adopted Moses, whose name means son of, in Egyptian, as seen in names like Amos or Thutmose. In Hebrew, Moshe means drawn out, recalling how he was saved from the river. Moses was miraculously saved, adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, and given the best Egyptian education to prepare him as Pharaoh. Ironically, much of it proved useless, or even a hindrance, compared to knowing God and his truth.
A change of plans. In Exodus 2 verses 11 to 25, Moses kills an Egyptian for beating a Hebrew, then flees to Midian, after realizing Pharaoh wants to kill him. There, he settles down, marries, and becomes a shepherd. This sudden turn shifts him from Prince of Egypt to humble exile. So any plans for Moses to rise to Egypt's throne and be seen as a god came to an abrupt end. Instead of serving as a false god, he would go on to serve the true God. At the moment he fled, Moses likely had no idea what lay ahead for him. God can use our failures to prepare us for greater purposes. Even when plans fall apart, God is still at work behind the scenes, shaping us for his calling in his time. Moses lived 120 years, divided into 3 stages of 40 years each. First in Egypt, largely in Pharaoh's palace, then in Midian with Jethro, and finally leading Israel. His last 40 years, which fill much of the first 5 books of the Bible, focus on Israel's mission, to reveal God's true character to an idolatrous world.
Thank you for studying with us. We hope you give this video a like and please subscribe. And always keep the faith of Jesus.